I stared at the email on my screen, reading it for the third time, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something that made sense, something that didn't feel like a knife twisting in my gut. Subject: training schedule. Jennifer Martinez. Claire, effective immediately, you'll be training Jennifer Martinez on all aspects of your role. Please prepare comprehensive documentation and ensure a smooth transition over the next 2 weeks. Jennifer will shadow you starting Monday. David. My hands trembled as I gripped my coffee mug. 2 weeks after 7 years of 60-hour weeks, of skipped lunches and canceled vacations, of being the only person in this entire company who knew how to keep our proprietary systems running, 2 weeks was all I got. I didn't even get the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. Claire, did you get my email? David's voice boomed across the open office. My boss, if you could call someone who took credit for all my work while throwing me under the bus for his mistakes, a boss, stood by his office door, arms crossed, that smug smile plastered on his face. I forced myself to nod, just reading it now. Great. Jennifer's going to be fantastic. MBA from Stanford, Really impressive pedigree. He said it like I hadn't built this entire department from scratch with my state school engineering degree and pure determination. I need you to give her everything, and I mean everything. All your processes, contacts, passwords, full knowledge transfer. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I could feel my coworkers' eyes on me, everyone suddenly very interested in their monitors. They all knew what this meant. I was being pushed out, and they were watching it happen in real time. Of course, I heard myself say. My voice sounded far away, Papa. I'll prepare the documentation. That's what I like to hear. Always a team player, Claire. David clapped his hands together. Oh, and I'll need you to stay late tonight to get started on that documentation. Jennifer starts bright and early Monday, and we can't afford any gaps in coverage. He walked back into his office without waiting for a response. Why would he? In 7 years, I'd never said no. Not when he asked me to work through Christmas, not when he borrowed my ideas and presented them as his own to the board, not when he hired his nephew for a position I was promised at twice my salary. I was the reliable one, the one who fixed everything, the one who never complained, the one who was about to be replaced by someone with the right degree and probably the right last name. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Don't forget Sunday dinner. Your sister has big news. I closed my eyes. Sunday dinner's at my parents' house, where I got to hear about my sister's promotion. Again, where my dad would ask in that carefully neutral tone if I'd thought about going back to school or looking for new opportunities. Where my mother would wonder, just loud enough for me to hear, where she'd gone wrong with me. The subway ride home was a blur. I clutched my laptop bag, my mind racing through 7 years of memories. Every late night, every weekend I'd spent in the office, the product launch I'd single-handedly saved when the entire system crashed 3 hours before the big presentation, the algorithm I'd optimized that had saved the company millions, all of it apparently worth 2 weeks' notice via email. My apartment was dark and cold. I hadn't bothered to turn on the heat before I left that morning, another cost-saving measure in my perpetually tight budget. The pizza box from 2 nights ago still sat on the counter. I couldn't remember the last time I'd cooked a real meal. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. Might as well get started on that documentation. Maybe if I made it good enough, comprehensive enough, they'd realize they needed to keep me. Maybe David would see my value. The cursor blinked mockingly on the blank document. I worked until 3 a.m, documenting 7 years of institutional knowledge. Every workaround, every patch, every Band-Aid solution I'd created to keep our Frankenstein system running. I made it clear, detailed, perfect. The weekend disappeared in a haze of documentation and dread. Sunday dinner was exactly as awful as I'd anticipated. My sister announced her second promotion in 18 months. My father asked if I'd considered networking more. My mother served my sister an extra helping of dessert and told her how proud she was. I left early, claiming I had work in the morning. No one argued. Monday morning, Jennifer Martinez walked into the office like she owned it. Designer bag, perfect hair, confident smile. 26 years old, according to her LinkedIn profile. I definitely hadn't stalked all weekend. Her father was a venture capitalist. Her undergraduate degree was from Yale. She'd spent 2 years at Google before going back for that Stanford MBA. She was everything I wasn't. You must be Claire. She extended her handshake firm and practiced. I'm so excited to learn from you. David speaks very highly of your attention to detail. Attention to detail. Not my innovation, not my problem solving, my attention to detail. Welcome, I managed. I've prepared documentation. Oh, that's great. But I really learn best by doing, you know? I hope we can make this really hands on. She smiled, and it probably wasn't meant to be condescending, but that's how it landed. I'm sure I'll pick it up quickly. How hard can it be? How hard can it be? 7 years of my life reduced to how hard can it be? I spent that week showing Jennifer everything. She took notes on her iPad, nodding and smiling, asking questions that made it clear she'd never actually built anything from the ground up. She'd managed projects, sure, directed teams, but gotten her hands dirty in the code, troubleshooting at 2 in the morning, manually fixing data corruption issues? Never. So you just run this script when the system crashes? She asked on Wednesday, watching me fix yet another issue. It's not that simple. You have to check the error logs first, identify which module is causing the problem, then... Right. But there's a script for it, yes? I can just, automate that? I bit my tongue. The script is already as automated as it can be. But you need to understand what it's doing, because sometimes, I'm sure I'll figure it out. She smiled brightly. I'm a quick learner. By Friday, I could see the writing on the wall. Jennifer wasn't learning the job. She was learning just enough to look competent in meetings. She'd taken all my documentation, all my passwords, all my contacts. She'd already started having lunch with David, the two of them laughing in the conference room like old friends. Claire, David called me into his office at 4:45 p.m. Close the door. I knew what was coming. I wanted to thank you for being such a professional through this transition. I know it's not easy, but Jennifer is really impressing me. She's going to bring some fresh perspective to the role. My 2 weeks aren't up until Wednesday, I said. Right, about that. He leaned back in his chair. We've decided to accelerate the timeline. Jennifer seems ready to take the reins and, well, we think a clean break would be best for everyone. Today will be your last day. Today? The word came out as a whisper. Your severance package is quite generous, 2 weeks' pay, and of course, we'll provide a reference. He slid a folder across the desk. Just need you to sign this non-compete and NDA. My hands shook as I opened the folder. 2 weeks severance. After 7 years, and a non-compete that would prevent me from working anywhere in the industry for 18 months. This non-compete, standard procedure, I'm afraid, it's really for your protection as much as ours. We'd hate for there to be any confusion about intellectual property. The intellectual property I'd created, that was now legally theirs. I need to think about this. David's smile tightened. Claire, I'm going to be honest with you. You can sign this and leave on good terms with a reference. Or you can make this difficult and, well... He spread his hands. The tech industry is smaller than you think. Word gets around about people who aren't team players. I signed. What choice did I have? I packed my desk in a daze. 7 years fit into one cardboard box. A few photos, a mug my team had given me for my 5-year anniversary, the small succulent that had somehow survived my neglect. Jennifer watched from my desk, her desk now, occasionally glancing over with something that might have been pity. Good luck, Claire, she said as I headed to the elevator. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. The subway was packed with the evening rush. I stood, crushed between strangers, holding my box of 7 years. A teenager jostled past me and I stumbled, the box slipping from my hands. The mug shattered on the subway floor. No one helped me pick up the pieces. I walked home from the subway station, 10 blocks in the rain because I couldn't afford an Uber and I couldn't face getting back on the train. My clothes were soaked. The cardboard box was disintegrating. I didn't care. My apartment was dark and cold. I set the soggy box down and stood in my living room, dripping, numb. This was it. This was what 7 years of loyalty got me. Fired on a Friday afternoon, replaced by someone's well-connected daughter with barely enough severance to cover next month's rent. I couldn't work in my industry for 18 months. My savings were non-existent. I'd poured everything into student loans and helping my parents when Dad lost his job 3 years ago. I had no backup plan, no network, no prospects. I thought about calling my mom, then remembered Sunday dinner. The way she'd looked at my sister with such pride. The way she'd asked me in that tired voice, "Are you at least happy, Claire?" Was I happy? Had I ever been? I walked to my kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and then another. The bottle was cheap, but it did the job. The room started to blur at the edges, my thoughts slowing down, becoming manageable. Maybe I'd go back to school. Maybe I'd move back home. Maybe I'd just stop trying so hard. What was the point? I'd given everything to a company that had thrown me away the moment someone shinier came along. I poured another glass and didn't bother with the glass after that. The room was spinning. I knew I should stop, should eat something, should drink water. But the numbness felt good. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about work, wasn't mentally troubleshooting problems, wasn't worried about missing something important. I reached for the bottle again and misjudged the distance. It slipped from my fingers, red wine spreading across my white carpet like blood. I watched it soak in, thinking distantly that I'd lose my security deposit now too. I should clean it up. I should do something. Instead, I closed my eyes. The room kept spinning, even with my eyes closed. My heart was beating too fast, or maybe too slow. I couldn't tell. I couldn't feel my fingers. The numbness spread from my chest outward, and some distant part of my brain recognized that this wasn't normal, that something was wrong. I tried to stand up and collapsed. The floor was cool against my cheek. I should call someone. 911. My mom. Anyone. My phone was somewhere. I couldn't remember where. I couldn't move. This is pathetic, I thought. This is how I go out? Drunk and alone in my apartment, fired and forgotten? I'd worked so hard. I'd done everything right, worked overtime, volunteered for the difficult projects, never complained. And for what? To die alone on my apartment floor, replaced and discarded? The spinning intensified. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. My last thought was that my mother would find out at Sunday dinner. My sister would shake her head, and my father would say something about what a waste it all was, and my mother would cry and wonder where she went wrong. And David would replace me in every conversation he'd ever had until I was just that girl who used to work here. What was her name again? The darkness swallowed everything. I gasped awake, jerking upright so violently I nearly fell out of my chair. Chair? I blinked, disoriented. I was at my desk, my office desk. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the familiar smell of burnt coffee and recycled air, the constant hum of servers in the background. What the hell? My computer monitor glowed in front of me. I stared at it, my brain struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. Subject, training schedule, Jennifer Martinez Claire. Effective immediately, you'll be training Jennifer Martinez on all aspects of your role. Please prepare comprehensive documentation and ensure a smooth transition over the next 2 weeks. Jennifer will shadow you starting Monday. David. Numb. No, this wasn't possible. I checked the date on my computer, then my phone, then the calendar on the wall. It was the same Friday. The Friday I'd gotten the email. The Friday that had started the worst 2 weeks of my life. The Friday I'd died. I'd died. I remembered it. The wine, the floor, the darkness, the absolute certainty that I was dying alone. But here I was. I pinched my arm, hard. Pain bloomed, sharp and real. Claire, did you get my email? I spun around. David stood by his office door, arms crossed, that familiar smug smile on his face. The exact same stance, the exact same words. This was impossible. This was insane, but it was real. I had died, and somehow, impossibly, I'd come back. Back to this moment. Back to this day. Claire? David's smile flickered with impatience. The email? My mind raced. I had 2 weeks before they fired me. 2 weeks before Jennifer took over my job and I lost everything. 2 weeks before I spiraled into depression and drank myself to death. But now I knew what was coming. A strange calm settled over me. I looked at David, really looked at him, and for the first time in 7 years, I saw him clearly. Not as my boss, not as someone whose approval I needed, but as exactly what he was, a mediocre man who'd built his career on stealing credit from people like me. And suddenly I knew exactly what to do. Yes, David, I got your email. I smiled and it felt good. I'll take care of everything. That's what I like to hear. Always a team player, Claire. He started his usual spiel about Jennifer, her MBA, her pedigree. I let him talk. Let him explain how I'd need to give her everything. Let him tell me to stay late and prepare documentation. Of course, I said when he finished. I'll make sure Jennifer gets exactly what she needs. And I would. Just not what David thought. That night, I didn't go home and frantically document everything. Instead, I went to my favorite restaurant, the expensive one I'd always wanted to try but couldn't afford, and ordered the tasting menu. I sat alone at the bar, savoring each course, each sip of wine, each moment, because I'd been dead. I'd felt the darkness closing in, felt my life slipping away in that cold apartment. And now I was here, alive, with knowledge I shouldn't have. I knew Jennifer would quit in 2 days after taking over. I'd heard it through the grapevine in my first life, right before I stopped being able to afford to go out and hear office gossip. She'd lasted exactly 2 days before realizing the job was impossible and storming out. 2 days after that, the entire system had crashed. It had taken them 3 weeks to get it running again, and they'd lost their biggest client in the process. And they'd tried to contact me. I'd seen the emails pile up before I died. Desperate messages from David, from HR, even from the CEO, begging me to come back, to help, to save them. I'd deleted them all. Too proud, too hurt, too broken. But this time I could choose differently. This time I had all the power. Saturday morning, I woke up energized for the first time in years. I went to the gym. When was the last time I'd exercised? I couldn't remember. I got a haircut at a real salon, not the supercuts I usually went to. I bought new clothes, expensive ones, and didn't feel guilty about it. Sunday dinner was different too. I walked in with confidence, hugged my sister, congratulated her on her promotion with genuine warmth. When my father asked if I'd thought about networking, I smiled and said, "Actually, I'm working on some new opportunities. Big changes coming." My mother looked at me curiously. "You seem different, honey. Good different." "I feel different," I said. And it was true. Monday morning, I watched Jennifer Martinez walk into the office with the same designer bag, perfect hair, and confident smile. But this time, I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't hurt. I was in control. "You must be Claire." She extended her hand. "I'm so excited to learn from you. David speaks very highly of your attention to detail." "Welcome, Jennifer." I shook her hand firmly. "I've prepared comprehensive documentation for you. Everything you need to know." And I had. Over the weekend, I'd created the most beautiful, detailed, utterly useless documentation imaginable. Page after page of technically accurate information that told you nothing about how things actually worked. Every process was documented, but without the context of why we did it that way. Every workaround was listed, but not the problems they solved. Every script was explained, but not when or how to use it. It was like giving someone a recipe that listed every ingredient and measurement, but forgot to mention you needed to turn on the oven. "Wow, this is thorough," Jennifer said, scrolling through the 100-page document I'd sent her. "I believe in being comprehensive," I said sweetly. "Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask." She did have questions, lots of them, and I answered every single one with elaborate technical detail that was absolutely correct and completely unhelpful. So when the system throws error 4762, what do I do? Well, error 4762 indicates a database connection timeout, which can be caused by several factors, including network latency, database server overload, or incorrect connection string parameters. The error handling protocol is documented in Section 7.3 of the manual, which references the troubleshooting flowchart in Appendix C, though you'll want to cross-reference with the database schema in the shared drive folder labeled Legacy Systems on Archive 2019, the purple folder, not the blue one, and then I watched her eyes glaze over, watched her nod and smile and pretend to understand, watched her take notes that would make no sense when she tried to reference them later, just like I had in my previous life. "This is a lot of information," she said on Tuesday afternoon. "Oh, I know, it took me years to learn it all, but I'm sure you'll pick it up quickly. How hard can it be, right?" I echoed her words from my previous life, and the irony was delicious. Wednesday, I started introducing her to important contacts. "This is Marcus from the data team. He's crucial for when you need to run the quarterly reports." Marcus looked confused. "Actually, I just joined the company. I don't know anything about quarterly reports." "Oh, didn't David tell you? Jennifer's taking over my role." "Jennifer, Marcus will be your go-to for all data requests." I watched the panic flash across Jennifer's face as she realized she'd just been assigned a crucial contact who knew nothing. I smiled encouragingly. I did this all week. Introduced her to people who'd quit, people who'd transferred, people who'd never had anything to do with my actual work. Built her a network of contacts that was worse than useless. Thursday, David called me into his office. "How's the training going?" "Wonderfully. Jennifer is very enthusiastic. I've given her all my documentation and introduced her to the key stakeholders." "And she's ready to take over?" I paused as if considering. "You know, David, this is a complex role. I'd hate to see the transition rushed. Maybe we should extend the 2 weeks." "That won't be necessary. We need to make this change." He leaned forward. "Between you and me, Claire, we're bringing in fresh blood. Someone with new ideas. Someone who can take this department to the next level. Someone who can take credit for my work without actually doing it." I translated mentally. "I understand," I said. "Then I'll make sure Jennifer has everything she needs to succeed." Friday afternoon, David called me in again. Same speech, same timeline. Acceleration, same severance package and non-compete agreement. But this time, I read every word of that non-compete carefully, found the clause that said it was only enforceable if I was working in a substantially similar role at a direct competitor. Found the definition of direct competitor that was so narrowly written, it basically only covered 3 companies. Found the loophole I needed. I signed with a smile. "You're being very professional about this, Claire. I appreciate that." "Of course, I'm a team player, David. You know that." I packed my box, but this time I didn't pack the mug. Left it on the desk for Jennifer, a little reminder that she was walking into someone else's life. "Good luck, Claire," Jennifer said, just like before. "I'm sure you'll land on your feet." "Oh, I will," I said. "Good luck to you too, Jennifer. I think you're really going to need it." She blinked, not sure if that was a threat or encouragement. I didn't clarify. This time, I didn't take the subway home. I took an Uber, went to a nice bar, had a good meal, a single glass of wine, just one, and went home. My apartment was warm. I'd turned on the heat that morning. I ordered Thai food and ate it while watching trashy TV. I didn't open my laptop. Didn't document anything more. Didn't worry. I knew what was coming. Monday morning, I slept in. Made myself a real breakfast. Checked my phone and saw 3 missed calls from unknown numbers I didn't call back. Tuesday, my phone started ringing at 8 a.m. David's number. I sent it to voicemail. He called again at 8:15. 8:30, 9 on quack. At 9:30, he left a message. "Claire, it's David. Listen, Jennifer had some questions about the system, and she's having trouble reaching some of your contacts. Could you give me a call back? Thanks." I deleted it. At 11 a.m., I got an email from Jennifer herself. "Claire, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm having some issues with the morning reports. The documentation you left says to run the automated script, but I can't find the script, and the system is showing some error codes that aren't in the manual. Could you please call me? It's kind of urgent." I archived it. By 2 p.m., the emails were getting frantic. "Urgent. System issues need immediate assistance. Please call ASAP." I went to yoga class and turned off my phone. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 emails. The subject lines told the story: critical, database offline, entire system down, CEO requesting immediate response. I made myself coffee and read through them slowly, savoring each increasingly desperate message. Jennifer's emails had gone from polite requests to barely concealed panic. Claire, I don't understand what's happening. Everything crashed and I can't get it back online. I tried following the documentation, but nothing is working. Please help. David's emails had evolved from, could you give us a hand, to, we need you in the office immediately. Claire, I know you're no longer with the company, but we have a critical situation. The entire system is down and we need your expertise. We're willing to bring you back as a consultant at a competitive rate. The last email was from HR. Dear Claire, this is to formally request your assistance with an urgent technical matter. We understand you signed a separation agreement, but we would like to discuss potential consulting arrangements. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Susan Chen, Senior VP of Human Resources. I sipped my coffee and thought about my previous life. How I'd ignored these emails because I'd been too depressed, too hurt, too broken to care. How the company had eventually gotten the system running again, but had lost their biggest client and had to lay off half the department. How David had been demoted. How Jennifer had left tech entirely and gone to work for her father's firm. How none of it had mattered because I'd been dying alone in my apartment. But now I held all the cards. I opened my laptop and composed a single email to Susan Chen. Susan, thank you for reaching out. I'd be happy to discuss consulting arrangements. My rate is $500 hour, 8-hour minimum per day, with a 1-week minimum commitment paid in advance. I'm available to start next Monday. Given the non-compete agreement I signed, I trust the company's legal department will provide written confirmation that consulting work is exempt from those restrictions. Please let me know if these terms are acceptable. Best, Claire. I hit send and went to make breakfast. The response came in less than 10 minutes. Claire, your terms are acceptable. I'll have legal send over the consulting agreement and NDA exemption this morning. Can you possibly start today? We're in a critical situation. Susan? I smiled, typed slowly. Susan, I appreciate the urgency, but I have prior commitments through the end of the week. I can begin Monday morning at 9 a.m. provided the signed agreement and first week's payment are received by Friday. Claire. Another quick response. Agreed. I'll have everything processed today. Thank you, Claire. I spent the rest of Wednesday at a spa. Full treatment, massage, facial, the works. My phone kept ringing. I kept ignoring it. Thursday, the signed contract arrived via courier. $20,000 for 1 week of consulting. Legal confirmation that consulting didn't violate my non-compete. And a clause that said they could extend the contract week by week if needed. I deposited the check, watched it clear, they'd expedited it, and treated myself to dinner at the nicest restaurant in the city. Friday, I went shopping. Bought a whole new work wardrobe. Professional, expensive, nothing like the cheap business casual I'd worn for 7 years of being undervalued. I was ready. Monday morning, I walked into the office at exactly 9 a.m. The place was chaos. People were running around, phones were ringing. I could hear shouting from the server room. Jennifer sat at my old desk, her desk, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her designer clothes rumpled. She looked up when I walked in, and the relief on her face was almost comical. Claire, oh my God, Claire, I'm so glad you're here. Everything is broken and I don't know how to fix it, and David is losing his mind, and Jennifer, I said calmly, take a breath, where's David? His office, he's been on the phone with the CEO all morning. I walked to David's office and knocked. He looked up and I'd never seen him look so disheveled. Tie loose, hair messy, actual sweat stains on his shirt. Claire, thank God we need you. I'm here as a consultant, David. $500 an hour, remember? So let's make this efficient. What's the current status? He blinked at my tone. In 7 years, I'd never spoken to him like this, like an equal, like someone who knew her worth. The entire system crashed Wednesday morning. Jennifer couldn't get it back online. We brought in IT, but they can't figure out your workarounds. We've lost all access to the customer database. The backup restoration failed. We have a major client presentation on Friday, and we have nothing. I see. I pulled out my phone and started a timer. I'll need full administrative access restored, my old desk space, and Jennifer out of my way. This is billable time, so every minute you spend talking is costing you money. Right, yes, whatever you need. I walked back out to the main office. Jennifer had vacated my desk. I'd have to remember not to call it that. It was just a desk. I didn't work here anymore. I sat down, logged in with my old credentials, of course they hadn't changed them, and looked at the mess. It was worse than I'd expected. Better than I'd hoped. The system hadn't just crashed, it had catastrophically failed because Jennifer had tried to run a routine maintenance script without understanding what it did. A script that was clearly labeled in my documentation as critical. Do not run without checking dependencies. She'd run it at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday during peak usage without checking anything. The database had corrupted. The automated backup had failed because, and this was beautiful, Jennifer had accidentally disabled it while cleaning up unnecessary processes on Tuesday. There was no recent backup, no safety net, no easy fix. In my previous life, it had taken the company 3 weeks and an expensive emergency contract with a database recovery firm to get things running again. But I could fix it in 3 days. I knew exactly what had gone wrong and exactly how to repair it. The question was, did I want to? I thought about 7 years of loyalty. 7 years of being undervalued, underpaid, taken for granted. 7 years of watching David take credit for my work while I smiled and accepted it because I was a team player. I thought about dying alone on my apartment floor. Thought about Jennifer's how hard can it be. I stopped the timer on my phone. 30 minutes. I'd been here 30 minutes. I stood up and walked back to David's office. I need to speak with you and Susan Chen, conference room, now. 5 minutes later, I sat across from David and Susan, the senior VP of HR who'd never bothered to learn my name before. I've assessed the situation, I said. The system failure is catastrophic. Jennifer ran a critical script without understanding the implications and disabled the backup system. Recovery is possible, but it's going to take time and expertise. How long? David asked. For me, 3 days of intensive work. For anyone else? I shrugged. The database recovery firm you're probably planning to call will quote you 6 weeks and $200,000. Minimum. Susan paled. 3 days? You can do it in 3 days? I can, but I need to discuss the terms of my continued engagement. Your rate is already... I'm not talking about money. I leaned back in my chair, channeling every confident executive I'd ever seen. I'm talking about what happens after I fix this. David and Susan exchanged glances. Here's what I propose, I continued. I fix your crisis. I train a proper replacement, not Jennifer, someone with actual technical skills. I stay on as a consultant for 3 months to ensure stability, and in exchange, you meet my terms. Which are? Susan asked carefully. I slid a piece of paper across the table. I'd prepared it over the weekend, knowing this moment would come. First, my consulting rate increases to $750 an hour for the duration of the 3-month engagement. Second, you provide a formal letter of recommendation acknowledging my contributions to the company, all of them, including the projects David has historically claimed credit for. Third, you release me from the non-compete entirely. And fourth, I paused for effect. Jennifer is removed from the project immediately, and I get to handpick her replacement from internal candidates. David's face went red. Now wait just a minute. Fifth, I continued, speaking over him, a formal apology from David, in writing, for the unprofessional manner of my termination. And sixth, all of this is signed and delivered before I write a single line of code. Silence. Susan looked at David. David looked at his hands. This is outrageous, he finally said. You can't. I can. I met his eyes. You can accept my terms, or you can call that database recovery firm. Your choice. But I'm billing for this meeting, so decide quickly. More silence. 1 hour, Susan said. Give us 1 hour to discuss this with the executive team. Fine, the clock stops now. I stood up. I'll be in the cafeteria. You have until 11 a.m. I spent the next hour drinking the expensive coffee I could never afford before and watching the office spiral further into chaos. People running back and forth, Jennifer crying in the bathroom, David shouting at someone on the phone. At 10:55, Susan found me. We accept your terms, all of them. In writing? Legal is drafting everything now. You'll have the signed agreements by end of day. Then I'll start tomorrow morning. Today's been very productive, but I'll need to prepare my recovery plan overnight. Tomorrow? But, Susan, you just watched me negotiate terms for an hour. That's billable time. Did you want to spend more money watching me work, or would you rather I came in fresh tomorrow and fixed your problem efficiently? She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, fine, 9 a.m.? 8 a.m. This is a crisis after all. I left at 11 a.m. exactly. 4 billable hours for 1 day of negotiation. $2,000, more than I used to make in a week. That night, I didn't prepare a recovery plan. I already knew exactly what needed to be done. Instead, I went out with some old college friends I'd lost touch with during my 7 years of overtime. You seem different, my friend Rachel said. Good different. What happened? I died, I said, then laughed at her expression. Metaphorically, my old job killed me. But I'm better now. To rebirth, Rachel said, raising her glass. To rebirth, I echoed. Tuesday morning, I arrived at 7:55 a.m. with a grande latte and a smile. The office was almost empty. Most people didn't come in until 9. Perfect. I sat down at the desk, cracked my knuckles, and got to work. The database corruption was ugly, but I dealt with worse. I knew every quirk of the system, every undocumented feature, every hidden dependency. I'd built half of it myself. By 10 a.m., I had the core system running. Limited functionality, but running. By 2 p.m., I'd restored 80% of the customer database from partial backups and transaction logs. By 6 p.m., the system was operational. Not perfect, but functional. David appeared at 6:15. Claire, this is incredible. How did you... Expertise, I said shortly. And 7 years of experience that Jennifer's MBA didn't cover. He had the grace to look ashamed. About that, I'll need your written apology by tomorrow. Susan has the template. Right, of course. He hesitated. I didn't realize how much you actually did around here. No, I agreed. You didn't. You were too busy taking credit to notice who was actually doing the work. I saved my progress and logged out. I'll be back tomorrow to finish the recovery and start documenting for the new hire. Speaking of which, I'll be interviewing candidates on Thursday. I need access to internal resumes and HR records. Whatever you need. Wednesday, I finished the database recovery. System fully operational, better than it had been before the crash because I'd taken the opportunity to fix several long-standing issues. I also received my signed agreements, everything I'd asked for in writing. David's apology was terse but adequate. Claire, I apologize for the unprofessional manner in which your employment was terminated. Your contributions to this company were substantial and I should have handled the situation differently. David Chen. Not exactly heartfelt, but it was in writing, signed, on company letterhead. The recommendation letter was better. Susan had actually put effort into it, listing every major project I'd worked on, every crisis I'd solved, every innovation I'd introduced. It was the kind of letter that would open doors. Thursday, I interviewed 5 internal candidates for my replacement. 3 were incompetent. 1 was adequate. 1, a quiet guy named Adrian from the data team who'd been with the company for 3 years, was actually brilliant. Why haven't you applied for advancement? I asked him. He shrugged. David doesn't like me, says I don't have executive presence. Which I think means I don't play golf. Can you handle complex database architecture? I designed the current structure for the data warehouse. David took credit for it in the last board meeting. I smiled. You're hired. Well, I'm recommending you. Can you start next Monday? Seriously? Seriously, but I need you to understand something, Adrian. This job is going to be hell. David will take credit for your work. You'll be expected to work overtime without recognition. You'll fix problems that other people create and never get thanked. So why would I want it? Because in 3 months, I'm going to leave, and you're going to have this entire system under your control. You'll be indispensable. And when you are, you're going to negotiate for what you're worth. Don't make my mistake and wait 7 years to realize your value. He grinned. Deal. The next 3 months were the best work experience of my life. I came in at 8, left at 5, and didn't answer emails after hours. I trained Adrian properly. Actually, properly, not the sabotage job I'd done on Jennifer. He was smart, dedicated, and soaked up knowledge like a sponge. I also started teaching him how to document his work in a way that made it clear who had done what. How to send update emails that copied the right people. How to protect himself from credit theft. David's going to hate this, he said. David can't do anything about it. I'm a consultant, and I'm training my replacement according to the terms of my contract, which, by the way, states that you're to be given proper recognition for your work. Jennifer had quit after 2 days, just like in my previous life. She'd sent a brief email to David saying the position wasn't the right fit and had gone to work for her father's VC firm. I heard through the grapevine that she'd told people the job was impossible and that I must have been exaggerating how complex it was. David had tried to get me to stay on permanently, offered me my old job back with a 10% raise. I'd laughed. David, I'm making more in a week as a consultant than I made in a month as your employee. Why would I take a pay cut? We could negotiate. We already did. I have 3 months. That's it. By month 2, I had recruiters calling daily. Turns out the combination of my recommendation letter and my consulting rate had made me very attractive to other companies. I had my pick of opportunities. I chose a startup. Smaller company, lots of equity, and a CEO who actually understood technology. They offered me a senior engineering position with a salary twice what I'd been making at my old company. I accepted. My last day as a consultant was a Friday. I'd finished all knowledge transfer, documented everything properly, and ensured Adrian was ready to take over. David called me into his office one last time. Claire, I want you to know that I recognize now what an asset you were to this company. I'm sorry for how things ended. Are you sorry you fired me or sorry that it turned out badly for you? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I stood up. Good luck, David. You're going to need it. I walked out of that office for the last time. Adrian was at my old desk, his desk now. You ready for this? I asked him. Terrified, but ready. Remember what I taught you? Document everything. Copy the right people. Know my worth. Good man. I handed him a business card. My personal cell. If you need advice, call me. If they try to screw you over, call me. If you just want to grab a beer and complain about David, definitely call me. He pocketed the card. Thank you, Claire, for everything. Thank you for being worth training. I left that building and didn't look back. 6 months later, I was thriving at my new job. I'd been promoted already. The startup was growing fast, and my equity was worth real money. I'd paid off my student loans, moved to a better apartment, started dating a guy who actually appreciated me. Life was good, better than good. Life was better than I'd ever imagined it could be. I got an email from Adrian. Claire, thought you'd want to know. I got promoted to senior engineer, 40% raise and my own team. David tried to take credit for my latest project, but I had documentation proving it was mine. HR backed me up. Thanks for teaching me how to protect myself. Beer soon? Adrian. I smiled and replied, Congratulations. You earned it. Beer's on me. Claire. Another email, this one from Rachel, my college friend. Sunday brunch? Sarah's coming too. She wants to hear more about your mysterious rebirth. Also, she's bringing her cute coworker who's apparently perfect for you. I'd already told Rachel I was seeing someone, but Sarah was notorious for her matchmaking attempts. I started to type a polite decline, then paused. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Sunday dinner? Your sister has news. Also, your father and I want to hear about your new job. We're so proud of you, honey. Proud of me. The words I'd been waiting to hear for years. I felt a pang of something. Nostalgia, regret. For that other Claire. The one who'd died on her apartment floor. The one who'd never heard her. Mother say those words, but that Claire had given me something invaluable, a second chance. I texted my mom back. I'll be there. Can't wait to see you. Love you. Then I replied to Rachel. Brunch sounds perfect, but I should mention I'm dating someone. Still happy to meet Sarah's coworker as friends, though. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, then remembered that David's number had been unknown once, too. Hello? Hi, is this Claire Donovan? This is Michael Chen from TechCrunch. I'm writing a piece about women in tech who've made successful pivots from corporate to startup environments. Your name came up in my research, and I'd love to interview you if you're interested. A year ago, or a lifetime ago, depending on how you counted, I would have been terrified. Would have said no. Would have thought I wasn't important enough, wasn't successful enough. Now? I'd be happy to talk, I said. What's your timeline? We scheduled the interview for the following week. After I hung up, I sat back in my ergonomic chair in my sunny corner office and looked out at the city. I'd died. I'd come back. I'd burned down everything I'd built and rebuilt it better. And I'd learned the most important lesson of all. I was enough. I'd always been enough. I'd just been wasting my time trying to prove it to people who were determined not to see it. My laptop pinged with a new email. I glanced at it and froze. It was from David. Subject, consulting opportunity. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Claire, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out about a potential consulting opportunity. We're facing some challenges with system optimization, and Adrian suggested you might be available for a short-term engagement. I understand you're busy with your new position, but we'd be willing to work around your schedule. Your rate is still $750 an hour, correct? Please let me know if you're interested. Best, David. I read it twice, then started laughing. Some things never change. I hit reply. David, my rate is now $1,200 an hour with a 2-week minimum, paid in advance. Given my current commitments, the earliest I could start would be 3 months from now. Additionally, I'd require a written guarantee that Adrian is credited for all work he's contributed to, and a commitment that my consulting agreement includes a clause prohibiting you from claiming credit for any solutions I provide. Let me know if these terms are acceptable. Claire, I hit send and closed my laptop. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sarah. Rachel says you're seeing someone. Tell me everything. Also, you're still meeting Jake on Sunday. You guys can be friends. He's great. I smiled and texted back. Fine, I'll meet Jake. But I'm warning you, I'm very happy with my current situation. And I was. Happier than I'd ever been. Happier than I'd ever thought I could be. Because I'd learned that the only person who could save me was me. Not a company, not a boss, not a job title. Me. I'd saved myself once by dying, and I'd saved myself again by living. My laptop pinged one more time. I almost ignored it, then saw it was from Adrian. Claire, forgot to mention in my last email. David's been a nightmare since you left, constantly taking credit, undermining my work, making everything difficult. I'm thinking about leaving. Any advice? I typed quickly. Know your worth. Document everything. And remember, you don't owe them loyalty they never showed you. If you want to leave, leave. But if you want to stay and fight, I'll back you up. Your choice. His response was immediate. I think I want to fight. This job is good when David's not involved, and I've learned from the best how to protect myself. Good. Then fight and win. You've got this. I closed my laptop for real this time and headed out of the office. It was 4:45 on a Friday afternoon, and I had a date with my boyfriend and a bottle of good wine. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. As they closed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflective surface. I looked different, confident, strong, happy. I looked like someone who knew her worth. I looked like someone who had been reborn. I looked like me. The elevator descended and I thought about that other life. The one where I'd drunk myself to death on a lonely Friday night. The one where I'd been too broken to save myself. That Claire was gone. But she'd given me the greatest gift. The knowledge of what not to do. The courage to demand better. The strength to walk away. The elevator reached the ground floor and the doors opened. I walked out into the sunlight, pulled out my phone, and texted my boyfriend. "Leaving now, can't wait to see you. Best Friday ever." His response came immediately. "Every Friday with you is the best Friday." I smiled and started walking. Somewhere in the city, David was probably still at his desk, struggling with problems he couldn't solve without me. Jennifer was probably working for her father, telling anyone who'd listen about the impossible job she'd quit. And I was here, alive, successful, happy, reborn. I'd spent 7 years giving everything to a company that gave me nothing in return. I'd died alone and broken because of it. But I'd come back, and this time I'd done it right. This time I'd saved myself. And that, I thought as I headed home to the life I'd built from the ashes of my old one, was the best revenge of all. Not destroying them, not hurting them, simply succeeding without them, thriving without them, being happy without them. Living well was indeed the best revenge, and I was living very, very well. 3 months later, I got another email from David. He'd accepted my terms, all of them. Wanted me to start consulting in 2 weeks. I read the email, smiled, and hit delete. I had better things to do.